sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show that sometimes, occasionally, and quite by accident, finds you a find and catches you a catch. I'm Bianca, and with me today are a couple of faces that you might not recognize, although you've been watching the show alongside them for the whole of last year, Jonathan and Ragabash Dabbler. Welcome, you guys.
Hello.
Hi, V. How you doing?
I am so excited to have this episode. I know that I kind of bugged you both, like, hey, come on the show with me and talk to me about how we helped you find each other. But I'm just so excited to be hanging out with some YouTube friends and talking about love in the time of COVID, how we find each other, how we find relationships, and how we find out new things about ourselves. So if you guys have questions for Jonathan and Rags, or if you have a story yourself about how you either came into or left a relationship during COVID, or maybe discovered something new about yourself with the help of this show or elsewhere, give us a call at 512-991-9242. Or if you can't be bothered to pick up a phone, hit that link at tiny.cc/callsex to share your stories. We would love to hear from you. All right. So you guys, let's chat a little bit about first plugging away. How did you find the show? What about the show spoke to you, and why did you keep tuning in?
You want to go first, babe?
Sure. So I was in the atheist closet for a while, and before that, I was somebody who liked to watch ACA shows just to argue with people, like in my head, pause the video and argue. And I kept hearing about secular sexuality, and I was like, I don't know if I'm even really into that. They're going to talk about scary stuff. And then eventually I kind of got comfortable with myself and comfortable with walking away from faith and that sort of thing. And there was a night where it was like just a Thursday night. It was time for secular sexuality. And I was like, I'm going to watch this show. I want to see what this is about. And I turned it on and I was like, where has this been all of my life? Because I was watching people like bring things up and talk to me about topics where I was like, oh, I have that same problem. And I've been denying myself about it for a while. So it's just been this sort of therapeutic tool in the background for a while now, where I've just kind of gotten to listen to people ask questions that I was kind of too uncomfortable to ask and then hear really good answers. And that's sort of how I found it. And that's kind of why I keep coming back.
That is awesome to hear. Yeah, a lot of people are surprised that the content creators that put out Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen have other shows. We do, in fact. If you're watching this, hi, you found us. Jonathan, how about you?
As far as that goes, I found that long after I deconverted. I mean, taking a look back at it, I've probably been an atheist most of my life and just wasn't willing to admit it to myself on account of living where I live. And yeah, I had a bout of flu last year in February, something like that. I don't go to the doctor as a general rule. I'm not some millionaire who goes to doctors. And yeah, after I ran out of woodworking videos on like the third day of being sick, I got recommended ACA shows in the YouTube algorithm. And then I ran out of Matt Dillahunty videos to watch. And then I ran out of Atheist Experience videos in general to watch. And then I ran out of Talk Heathen videos to watch. And then I found Secular Sexuality because it was the last thing on my list, because I thought I was perfectly fine with the level of sexuality that I had. So I wasn't worried about it. And it kind of turned out to be the best show for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Aw, I'm super curious about how the YouTube algorithm got you from woodworking videos to Matt Dillahunty.
Well, I understand that he is a woodworker, but he never talks about it, so who knows?
YouTube knows things about us that we don't even say. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember I found Secular Sexuality kind of the same way you guys did, because I certainly have not been here since its primary iteration. I was in the process of deconverting. Rags, I do exactly the same thing where I'd listen to AXP or Talk Heathen, and I'd pause it and just like argue with the caller in my head and see like how close I could guess like what the hosts are going to answer. And then eventually I found Secular Sexuality, and it was actually the first consistent show that I was invited to host at once I moved over to Austin. So I am super excited that both of you found us and that we're speaking to you a little bit. So I guess my next question for you guys is, how did you guys kind of become aware of each other, and what were y'all's first impressions of each other? Because I'm not sure if you found each other exactly through the show. I know I saw you interact together more and more in the live chat over the course of the year. Talk me through how you guys found each other online.
Well, speaking for Rags, he saw me engaging with a troll on Twitter and thought that I was incredibly attractive, and it was love at first sight on his part. I took some convincing, but you know.
I mean, yeah. All of the resistance was on his part. No.
But
No.
we, as far as actually meeting goes, beyond realizing we liked engaging with the same type of dishonest interlocutors on Twitter, I got involved with Eric Murphy's Discord, and from there I made friends, and from those friends I started playing with Dungeons and Dragons with a group that was available through those friends, and Rag started playing with that group. And
D&D brought you together.
Yep.
I mean, we don't advertise that.
Well, it's out there now. It's like y'all heard it here first. Oh, that's awesome.
Technically, we had talked before then, I will have you know. So, you know, we don't necessarily claim that, but that was when I saw him outside of his YouTube videos. He did a very, I'm sorry, babe.
No, go ahead.
He did a very moving video called An Atheist Talks to God, and that's sort of what endeared me to him.
Wonderful. Well, we will certainly be sending all you guys over to both their channels, because I know Rags has that channel, and then Jonathan actually is putting together a D&D style channel as well. So you guys are going to get lots of great content from these two at the end of the show. But Rags, I'm curious what your version of this was as well.
Yeah.
So I already told you his version.
Right. He speaks for me. Honestly, I'm just.
That's very healthy. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a healthy relationship.
So I did first interact with him on Twitter, and I sort of recognized him from like being in chats on videos and that sort of thing. We had never actually spoken, and I saw something pop up where he was dealing with some dishonest interlocutor who accused him of lifting weights and eating donuts in like an insulting way, and his response was, lifting weights is fun and donuts are delicious. What's your point? And it was so funny to me. And I just tweeted at him. I was like, you ever fall in love with a stranger? And I was pretty sure I came on too strong. I was like, oh, that was a bad mistake. Okay, just let it ride. And then we started talking from there, and then noticed more and more like how our paths were crossing. And so it just kind of, it went from there. And then, yeah, we ended up on a D&D game together and doing a couple of live streams together. And then first date time, we decided to go hiking, because if we didn't actually like each other, we could just lose each other in the woods and it wouldn't be a big deal.
You said it was for social distancing reasons.
If I needed to distance myself from you, then that would have been a pretty good.
Technically, that's another form of social distancing oneself.
But yeah, it was a safe way to get together, and we went hiking and did the whole thing, and we had a lot of fun, and it's just kind of gone from there.
Yeah, walk us through that a little bit. I remember knowing about this before you guys like were public, or had told many people, and Jonathan was like so excited. He was like texting me on Twitter. He's like, I'm going on a date with this guy. I'm so excited. He's so cute, and we're gonna go for a walk in the woods. Sorry, Jonathan, throwing you under the bus here.
No. If I remember correctly, I was hilarious and attractive, and that's what happened.
That's what happened.
That's what happened. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how long ago was this again? I feel like it was yesterday, but also like 10 years ago because 2020
COVID
was
sucks.
horrible.
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
Yep.
What were we looking at there?
October?
October. It would have been after my birthday, but before yours, I think.
Yes. Yeah. It was. Yes. Actually, that's a pretty good way to gauge it. So
I'm good at stuff
sometime
like that.
late October, and yeah, we were talking, and we were trying to figure out a COVID-friendly way. We also live a couple of hours apart from each other, so we were trying to find a place where, like, neither of us sort of had home court advantage, and that sort of thing. It was. And then Jonathan was like, well, there's actually a really beautiful park with a lot of hiking trails and the gorge and a river, and we should just go do that. And I said yes, and then woke up the next day and went, oh my God, what have I just done?
You're going into the woods with a stranger.
Right? This is good. This is exactly what every horror film from the early 2000s is about. Good job. Way to go, Rags. But no, that's sort of how it came about, was as a way that was sort of friendly on all sides to be able to meet up for the first time and that sort of thing. It was good.
Awesome. And then after that first date, were you guys like, all right, next one right away? Was it like how did you, I guess my question is, how did you progress from there? Where are you now as opposed to that first date in the woods?
I would say probably like the fact that the world is locked down right now kind of helped us get to know each other without feeling like that pressure to be physically interacting all the time. So we just spent a lot of time talking, and a lot of time finding ways to be together without physically being together. And that was really fun.
The part he's not mentioning for my sake is that I was a little scared of physical intimacy, but yeah.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. As much as you're comfortable with, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but that was also one of those things, because I had not too long before that come out of a less than constructive relationship, let's say. So we were kind of meeting at a mutual place there of like not wanting things to go too far too fast, but also really wanting to spend time together. And it was almost like COVID was a catalyst for that. It's like, well, technically we can't, so let's just hang out and talk until 2 a.m. and that kind of thing. And everything kind of just went from there.
Awesome. And then as far as the show, bringing it back, I'm curious, because I know that I have interacted with the show differently since coming on as one of the hosts, because my romantic and sexual and gender life, like every aspect of it, has shifted and changed over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years. Oh my God, it's gonna be 2 years in July. Jesus Christ. But I'm curious for you guys, how did you interact with the show as single people, and how has that kind of morphed and changed as a couple? Like, do you watch the show together? Do you talk about the themes? I know Jonathan has called in a couple of times. So like, how has that shifted?
So bringing that back to me calling in a couple of times, I forgot for a minute that Rags watched the show after our first date. And I called in for dating advice and, got some really good, solid advice. Thank you, Vi. And afterwards, he sent me a text that was, "You're adorable."
Oh my
And we
goodness.
talked. We used it as a springboard to talk about more of what we were comfortable with and how far we were okay with going physically and emotionally as well. And it was actually really therapeutic to get to do that. And then it's almost like how if you have therapy, sometimes you wish you could just let people in on like a snippet of your therapy session. I'm not recommending Secular Sexuality as replacement for therapy, by the way. Don't.
Yes,
no.
please no.
You need
I don't
professional
want
help.
to
Get professional help.
ruin you as a person.
Yeah. But no,
No, but
it
that
was
is a
good.
great, like, hey, like life hack. Like if you want to tell your significant other to watch the show and then call in and pretend like, oh, whoops, I'm just talking to somebody else about this.
That is not what I did.
It is sort of a window.
Unless-
It is sort of a window, though, like into those conversations that your significant other has, like with a good friend or somebody who's trusted, where they're getting to speak in your absence, and then you kind of get to get a little bit of a gauge of what's going on in a way where they don't feel put upon to please you or to balance things out, and they're just able to kind of unload what's happening.
Yeah, no, it was just uncomfortable for me because I had Jonathan on the line and I knew Rags was in the chat, and I'm just like, this is awkward now.
Oh no!
You knew. Dang.
I'm willing to go through that for you guys, though. You're worth
Thank you.
it.
Well, and also I've called into the show a couple of times, but surprisingly, I don't use my pseudonym because my mom didn't actually name me Ragabash. So there are clips of me calling into the show from both before Jonathan and I got together and after.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but I'm not going to release the name that it was listed under. You're just going to have to listen for my dulcet tones and infer.
See, that's a problem though, because you sound very, very similar to a close friend. So, like, I am going to just get the two of you mixed up now forever.
But it was like, especially, especially knowing that we do kind of share this space and that we both do watch the show, but also knowing that like maybe he's not looking out for this thing. It's like, okay, do I call or do I not? Do I call or do I not? Actually, I think I've got something I really, really, really want to call about. So it was sort of an exercise in honesty on my part, where it was like, well, I would talk to somebody about this normally, and I have like, Christy's a mental health professional, and, you're very experienced in dealing with lots of things. And typically the guest was somebody who was experienced in dealing with the specific situation that I wanted to deal with. So I'm like, this is a golden opportunity. Like, I'm not going to let this go. I want to call in. But even that was like a little bit of mental calculus of just like, can I do it? Can I do it? And it's like, yeah, of course you can. Like, because if he asked me directly, we'd talk about it. So let's talk about it with like the curtain of being an anonymous voice on the internet. Why not?
I like it. I like that. Oh my gosh. Oh goodness. Okay. So I do want to, we have actually a couple of callers today, which is exciting. So we're going to jump over there, and then we're going to talk specifically around COVID and dating during COVID and kind of how it impacted the relationship. We've touched on it briefly, but I'm curious about, just all of those considerations and how that might have morphed the relationship. And, as someone who can very, very easily attest to how COVID accelerates things. All right, let's jump into some calls. You guys ready?
Do it.
All right, let's talk with Skip in California. Skip, welcome to the show.
Hi.
How can we help you tonight?
Hi. Yeah, I'm just calling in because, background. I left a fundamental Christian church that I'd been going to for 15 years, and I was raised and entrenched in purity culture. And I came out, and as I'm trying to date, it just feels like it's just so restrictive, and I feel, I don't know, it's hard to get out of the black and white thinking of, am I doing things wrong? But as I was listening to you all talk, the whole physical touch thing, that definitely resonated with me.
Mm-hmm. Can you go into a little bit more detail, if you're comfortable, about what kind of coming out you mean? Because that can influence how we take this conversation. Only if you're comfortable.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like labels are weird. I say I'm gay, just because I feel like that's simple enough. But also non-binary. So yeah, it's been, my family's been great. It's just been my church people that I've kind of, a lot of friendships I've had to let go of, and I tell people, like, growing up in purity culture, I wasn't allowed to touch men because I would lead them astray, and I wasn't allowed to touch women because they would know that I was gay.
Yeah, that resonates real hard. Thank you for sharing that, Skip. I appreciate you giving me that little bit of clarification, because that will help. And also, yay, non-binary people. Yeah, I mean, for me, there definitely is a one-to-one correlation between the kind of assumptions that are made about your morality and your worth as a person in regard to sex, not just the action, but also the attraction and the implications of that. So yeah, I've had to deal with that for years of having to go, okay, well, do I really, like this thing and I'm just not letting myself, or do I really dislike this thing for unrelated reasons, and would pushing that mean that I was not being true to myself versus, caving to a societal expectation I no longer hold by. So there is a whole lot of pulling apart that I know happens around this. And I'm going to let Jonathan and Rags kind of jump on this as well. But I do want to just say, give yourself time, right? This is, I know it's kind of a mantra on this show that there is no finish line. There is no timeline for you, right? You're not late. You're not behind. No one's waiting for Skip saying, where is she? It's just who you need to be in the moment and how comfortable you are. And I think that is also going to be key here. And I'm curious what my guests think, but that idea of personal comfort coming before expectations of other people is something that was always, billed as something super selfish and not even really an option. In purity culture, in my fundamentalist religious upbringing, it was, okay, you might be uncomfortable, but you have to suck it up and deal with it because your community needs X. And so making sure that you are prioritizing your comfort, whatever that means, if that means going out and having lots of sex safely and with consent, or no sex at all, ever, none. Like whatever you want to do, that is what is right for you in the moment.
Skip, you mentioned something about labels earlier, and I'd just like to piggyback off that and say the labels you find that are right to describe yourself now may not be the right labels you intend to use 10 years from now, and that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly valid. I know I've had many labels that I've considered myself under, and I wouldn't say any of those labels were wrong, but I will say they're not right for me now. And I think it's important to be patient with yourself as you figure out who you are right now and who you are tomorrow, and not worry too much about that. Mm-hmm. And as far as the physical intimacy goes, I'm sorry, you want to go ahead?
Oh, no, go for it.
As far as physical intimacy goes, that took me finding someone I could trust and feel safe with in order to explore. That took a lot. And that took some therapy from a licensed therapist for me to be able to go through with things, for me to talk about things, and for me to be comfortable with another person and to be vulnerable enough with another person to allow that. And everyone's journey is different as far as that goes, but I'm really, really hoping for the best for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I was talking to one of my friends about sex, and I was like, I'm trying to get away from the label virgin because I think it's just got too much weight to it. I've never done it before. But I was talking to one of my friends, I'm 29, and I went on a date with someone. I told them that, and that was a fun reaction. But I think that I was telling her that it was comforting to realize at one point that that when I do have sex with somebody, that it will probably most likely be someone that I choose. And there's like comfort in that. And so I don't know. It's just, I just get so in my head thinking about doing things wrong or being the weird one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So find somebody you can be weird with. I mean, there are lots of
love that.
people out there who like different things. And, you know, if there's anything weird that you like that you're not sure that the average person is going to be, find the people to be weird with. And, you know, it's human sexuality covers a whole broad spectrum. And you're not necessarily going to find that everybody you speak to is right. And it's important to get that out of the way first.
Yeah, right and wrong
Yeah.
can be these really big, scary concepts, especially for those of us who have sort of delayed our development in some way. I know that I was a little bit more willing to sort of come out of my shell earlier, but in terms of the people around me, I was a very late bloomer. And so that idea of doing it wrong, not knowing what I'm getting myself into, putting lots of pressure on the situation didn't really serve me very well. And there's a learning process there where you just have to sort of be forgiving to yourself and sometimes maybe even step back and go, wow, I am way, way, way overthinking this. But there's also a good quality of going, you know what? I'm not ready to go any further than coffee. Coffee is plenty intimate for me today. And so finding that balance is going to take a little bit of time. So you don't need to like rush through it. There's no making up for lost time. I know Christy often talks about like not worrying about the sex that you're not having, you know, those sorts of things. And I think that those are all a really healthy way to approach this, right? Just kind of looking around and taking inventory and going, what do I feel comfortable with, period? And what is right? And is wrong just an idea that I've sort of overlaid on top of a lot of different things? And, you know, there might be a little bit of personal work. And like Jonathan said, it might be helpful to have somebody who is experienced and qualified to really talk you through that and help you kind of define those things for yourself. Because I'm somebody who has very soft boundaries, and I've made decisions that looking back, I'm not particularly comfortable with, but you know, at the time I was. So you know, there's a lot of murky area in there, and it can be daunting. But there's not a right and a wrong. There's just, you know, what you're comfortable with today and what you can learn from it, good or bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I've been, well, the reason I ended up coming out when I did was because I was in therapy, and it was my first time seeing a non-Christian therapist.
Okay.
Highly recommend.
So that, yeah. And so just because of money, I haven't been able to go back, but I do plan to. But I had something I was going to say, but I lost it. Par for the course.
That's okay. I love hearing all of this from both of you guys, because it does seem like a pretty common experience. And I know it can feel like you're all alone in this, and that everybody else has their shit together and you're the last person trying to like figure out where the suitcase is. But it really is a common thing that a whole lot of people have gone through and haven't even gotten this far into, right? Like the fact that you are going to a therapist, especially a secular one, and plan to again, the fact that you are doing this work and thinking about these things in terms of what is right for me, and, you know, how do I have to deconstruct what I used to believe in order to live my best life, means that you are so far ahead, Skip. You are already almost there. And that is all you need to worry about right now, is being where you are and making sure that when you make decisions, you've thought through it and you've decided this is the one that makes the most sense for me. Yeah, you might look back and later be like, oh, that wasn't the right decision. Looking back in hindsight, that's fine too, right? There's nobody keeping score. There's nobody who's going to be like tallying this up. You're not going to have to face judgment at the end of your life. This is just going to be a learning opportunity and a fun story to tell at a bar or something. So of course, be safe, be careful, but also it's okay to not know what you're doing. No one really does.
Skip, quick question.
Yeah, I ask my friends, I say, yeah, go for it.
Quick question. Have you looked at resources in the area that are available to you with regards to something like the Freedom from Religion Foundation? Recovering from Religion is what I'm thinking of, actually. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've checked out Recovering from Religion. actually talked to someone a couple days ago on there, I think it was. And I've been trying to find other people who are deconstructing or in just similar situations. So I've joined a couple Discord servers too with others, and have devoured way too many books.
No such thing. I love that. That is wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that we're a social species and we're not meant to really go through anything alone.
Mm-hmm.
No need to zoom in on me. That was all I had to say.
That was an ice cream cone right there.
I was going to say earlier, kind of quick funny story, but I like to tell my friends because I don't know, I like to make jokes about the fact that I've never had sex before because it's easier to laugh. So I tell them, I go, is sex like in the movies where you smile at someone across the bar and then you like the screen goes black and then you are in bed together at some point and then you black out again and then you just wake up naked. Is that what it is? So that's what I think.
That's if that's how it works for you, you've been roofied. Definitely not the best.
I know. See, movies don't get your sex ed from movies.
No, not.
L-shaped blankets do not exist. Like that.
Oh, you mean that it's not supposed to not cover the man's chest, but cover the
woman's chest?
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, like those things. Those are artifice. Don't worry about that. Just pay attention to your own level of comfort, and be willing to say, "I'm cool here. I'm not cool here." You know what? Now that I've had a chance to breathe, I'm a little bit more cool. Maybe I'm not. Listen to yourself. Just listen to yourself.
You know more than you think. Your body knows what you are comfortable with, and your body is the one you have to listen to right now, not your church, not your community. Like if your body is saying, "Hey, I want this thing," go find a way to do that ethically. If your body is saying, "I do not want this thing," then fuck it. Who needs it? Don't do it. My gosh. Thank you so much for calling in, Skip. I would love to continue having this conversation. If you decide to call back in, we would love to talk with you more.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your night.
Yeah, you too.
I don't get to see every episode, so if you can let me know if Skip ever calls back in, please do.
Yes.
Soun's good. We'll do. Or I'll just have to tell you to watch every show. How dare you not watch every show? Excuse you.
I'm going for a master.
You're literally on the show admitting you don't watch. What?
I mean, what? No, I watch every show.
Twice even.
Twice each one. All right. We are going to talk to Leonid in Florida. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that quite right. I want to make sure I am. Is it Leonid?
Yeah, you can call me Leo. That's simpler. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, Leo. Welcome to the show. We are doing well. How can we help you tonight?
All right, so a little bit of a background to my question is I relocated to the United States about 3.5 years ago. And I relocated from Ukraine. And the topic that I'm going to question today is completely doesn't exist as far as I understand in Ukraine. Like this thing is not a thing in Ukraine, as far as I know. So I came here with a couple of questions. So I found myself after relocation, and especially during the COVID, missing the basic physical interaction with people, and not just being face-to-face with people and talking to people, but also touching people, essentially. And I think I'm missing it the most because back in Ukraine, I was going to social dances, so I was interacting with the lady dancers. Here, I cannot dance during COVID right now, so I cannot try it out if it comes up. So I looked into the issue of maybe I'm not the only one who is just missing the specifically physical touch with people. And I'm currently not in a position where I want to go into a serious relationship with someone. So I wanted to find this middle ground between, having physical touch, but be on platonic level of relationship, if that's a thing. And apparently it might be. Basically, you can have a cuddling friend, or you can have, as far as I understand, you can have a stranger which you cuddle with. So I'm new to this topic. I have no idea what to expect from this. And I have two questions on this topic. Maybe you can help me out with it. And the
Absolutely.
first question is, how common it is in the United States to have someone you cuddle with?
Oh gosh. Well, it certainly is picking up steam. I think I heard, I've certainly it's not a new phenomenon, but the idea of a cuddle buddy is something that I've seen pop up more and more recently, especially as COVID kind of hits everybody and everyone's like, I need physical touch, right? I don't need a relationship right now. I don't even really need sex right now. I just need somebody that I can like hug and to like hold me. So that is absolutely a thing. I have no stats as far as like how common it is percentage wise, but I do know that a lot of my friends have cuddle buddies or are looking for cuddle buddies. And I actually dabbled in that as well. Back in early 2020, late 2019. For me, it didn't stay cuddle buddies for very long. Because there does tend to be a little bit of that tension that gets built up, and then eventually you're like, oh, this is more than just cuddle buddies now. But it absolutely is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's more common than I expected then, because like back in Ukraine, we would essentially see some lady friends cuddling with each other or being a little bit more physical, but among men it would not be popular at all. And if we were talking about men and women, then it would be considered to be like a more serious relationship at that point. Like you couldn't have a platonic cuddle between two genders or sexes. Like there is no
Right.
much difference in Ukraine right now.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
No, that is a very common assumption among more maybe fundamentalist, more religious groups here as well. I know that if I was back in my conservative Christian world and I told somebody I had a cuddle buddy, they'd be like, are you keeping 3 feet on the floor? Like they would not believe me that it was just cuddling. And also, I love that you brought up the fact that sometimes maybe women could cuddle together or have that relationship, but that's also not something that's afforded to two guys, right? Like there's nothing about that, like there's still this stigma around the idea of men touching each other in a non-sexual physical way that is meant for intimacy and comfort. So regardless, whether you want to cuddle with somebody of another sex or gender or somebody of your own sex or gender, like absolutely, you can find that pretty much anywhere, as long as you phrase it in that way. I think cuddle buddy is the nomenclature right now.
Brief aside,
All right.
actually saw that a lot on submarines as far as men cuddling goes, and it was just something you just didn't comment on as a general rule. It was impolite to comment on, but not taboo to do.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's actually one thing that I wanted to sort of touch on too is, so Leo, you're in Florida. I know that there are specifically resources out there that center around the major urban communities in Florida to help people find that sort of thing. I don't have any links to give you, and I'm sorry, but Florida is actually a state where if you're near Orlando or Clearwater or Tallahassee or Miami, like there are resources out there for that sort of thing. But also, I am a health educator, and I actually am licensed in Florida to teach continuing education for massage therapists and other healthcare professionals. And massage therapists are taught in part about the ethics of touch and the ethics of dealing with someone who is coming to you specifically for the sensation of platonic touch rather than like a muscular therapy, but just dealing with people who are dealing with the lack of being touched. So if you find a therapist in your area who's following good health guidelines and that sort of thing, they actually may be able to at least help in that way, to give you a certain amount of time that is a held therapeutic space where you are receiving that physical compressive sensation of touch and physical interaction that we're really lacking right now. So those are a couple of options that are sort of specific to the state of Florida.
Nice. Thanks, Rags.
Rags, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the technical name for it is touch starved.
Touch starved, I've heard. Yeah. There are a few different things of it. And again, when I teach classes in ethics to my Florida students, I just talk about the absence of touch or the lack of touch. Because there are people even pre-COVID in our normal touchy-feely society who just are not regularly touched. And that is a specific need we have because, like Jonathan said before, we're a very social species. And there are hormones released in our bodies in terms of clan mentality and in-group dynamics and the safety that we're built to get from that if we don't receive physical contact, we do start to suffer from a lack of.
Leo, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, the first question, absolutely. And I honestly haven't thought about just getting a massage to cover this touch deprivation that I've been having lately. That's actually a really good idea. I need to look into. And sorry, I didn't catch. Are you practicing right now?
I'm not currently practicing. I no longer live in Florida. However, there are some really great therapists. And again, I don't know where you're from in Florida. I don't need you to disclose that here. But specifically, if you go and start looking for people, look for people that are reputable, preferably people that have several years in the industry and who will give you a free half-hour consultation so you can sort of talk through exactly what it is you need rather than getting something that's cookie cutter or something that may not directly address what you're looking for.
And can you repeat again, like what is the name of the job title or like the place that I'm looking for?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking in the state of Florida, look for people who bill themselves as massage therapists or people dealing with therapeutic touch. But you can go to Florida's massagetherapy.gov. So Florida, FLORIDAS, massagetherapy.gov. And you can look up licensed therapists by region, and they should be able to help you out there.
That sounds very good. I had a second question regarding specifically the cuddle buddies.
What's that?
If I were to look for a stranger to be a cuddle buddy, is there anything I should watch out for or pay attention to? Is there anything that you guys would suggest?
Yeah, that is a great question. I love the forethought there, making sure that everybody is safe. I think if I were going to try and find somebody to be a cuddle buddy with, I would get on a dating website like OkCupid. I actually found a lot of positive experiences on OkCupid upon moving to Austin, where they, as a dating site, it's not just for like one night stands and it's not just for like your lifelong partner. It is just for people who want various things to connect. So you can actually say in your profile, here's what I'm looking for, here's all that I'm going to be interested in, and here are my parameters. And then they will match you up with people who want similar things. And then it's just a matter of making sure that you meet up in person probably once or twice, at a safe distance, make sure you're both vaccinated, make sure that, you both, just make sure that you have a couple of conversations with that person first so you feel comfortable with them and don't jump right into cuddling, I wouldn't say. But yeah, I think that going to something like OkCupid would be very useful and probably a little bit less intimidating than just like putting an ad out on like, I don't know if you can even put ads on Craigslist for that kind of thing anymore, thanks to Sesta Fosta. But I would check out OkCupid first.
Right. Thank you very much for the suggestion. I have called the show before, and I absolutely love the show. Thank you guys for your time, for the time you took to answer the questions. And all right, very useful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leo. I'm so happy you called, guys. That was awesome, Rags. What a great suggestion.
It's something that we've dealt with since before this, but I mean, lots and lots and lots of us are suffering from just being, as you know, Jonathan brought up the term, touch starved.
Yeah.
And if as long as somebody's conducting it in a helpful, responsible way that respects your boundaries, go for it.
Yes, fully agree. All right, we've got 2 more callers. I want to take one more because he's been waiting on the line for a hot minute, but then we'll jump into second round of interviews and get to that 4th caller before the end of the show. How does that sound for you guys?
Sounds
That
wonderful.
sounds great.
All right, we are getting a lot of calls today. You guys must be like popular or something. All right, William in North Carolina, or Will's rather. Hi, Will. Welcome to the show.
Hey there. How you guys doing?
Doing good. How can we help you tonight?
That's good. Well, I have a couple of questions, and also I want to add on to that last call. I totally agree with about just getting any kind of touches. Totally agree. I mean, every time I don't hug my mom for like a week, I start feeling it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel that.
Yeah. Well, I guess on to my question. Let's see how I can phrase this right. So I want to know if I guess I want to know how people and who are pre-op trans people. Sorry, I don't know. Not necessarily
trans people is good.
Phrases in the community. Okay, but how do they know that they want to be another gender? I guess, or how can they just look at themselves? I guess. And say, yeah, I guess I'm missing something, or I'm not all me right now.
Yeah, that's a good question, Will. Thanks for calling in with that. I want to make it clear before I jump in that I am one person who has had that experience, so I can certainly speak from my experience, and I can share what I know to be true within the community, but this is by no means everybody, right? Everyone has their own journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to pinpoint something you said there. How do they know? And how do you look at something at your body or at yourself and say, I need something different. I'm not all here, or, there's something that needs to change. And that really is a huge question that a lot of people don't quite know right away, right? Like, we have this one concept of trans people as knowing since the age they were 3. Like, they were 3 and they knew they wanted to be another gender. And some people, absolutely, that's how that works. A lot of people go through many, many years of just feeling very uncomfortable in their body for some strange reason, and they haven't pinpointed it because it isn't a common thing that is talked about still. We're getting there. We're getting to the place where people can actually access this information when they need it. But for a lot of people's experience, they didn't actually get this information until much later and even realize this was a thing. For myself, I knew that I hated how I looked in photos. I knew that I hated wearing dresses. I knew that I hated being any attention being called to the more physical attributes of my body. Like, there were so many things that just made me so uncomfortable. I would always play the guy character in any make-believe thing that we did as kids, right? There were so many little things that put together, you look back on and you're like, oh, of course that's what that was. But at the time, it really was just, I don't know why, but I feel uncomfortable. So the first way that a lot of people learn about this is actually hearing other people talk about their experience and being able to put a name on it. So for me, a lot of that was listening to other YouTubers who had come out as trans in some way, shape, or form, talk about what it felt like to be dysphoric and realize, oh, this is hitting way too close to home. It is worth mentioning also that a lot of in the DSM-5, I believe is the one we're up to now. The treatment, quote unquote, for dysphoria is transition, right? So if you are wondering maybe if you are trans, this hypothetical person, you could go to a therapist who is trans affirming, because not all of them are, and you could say, here are the things I'm dealing with, and they can help you decide, oh, okay, this is actually a thing that I'm dealing with. This is what that is called. And the treatment option that has been backed by science and by doctors is transition. Now, it doesn't always mean full op, right? That doesn't always mean top and bottom surgery or facial surgery or hormones. It could be any combination that makes that person feel better in their skin. But yeah, that is a combination of doing a lot of introspection and hopefully also getting that support from the medical community.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a good way to, like, especially the therapy could really help out, and especially someone who's like trans friendly would be definitely a good way to, like, I guess, go about that. And that's especially good insight on, like, the inner self. Can you? What about I guess my second question would be, like, how do people, like, say I'm not right, but then I want to be that, which is male or something else? Because if you want to be that, or sorry, you can be that if you want to. It's just how the people. I don't know if people say, like, I know I am a male or a female, but do you also know, like, the full cultures of what those like genders, like, or they're just going based off, like, assumptions and stereotypes, like, this is what I thought a male was, and this is what I want to be, or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And that gets into the conversation around what is gender versus sex. And do we have to abide by certain gender stereotypes in order to uphold the idea of men and women in the first place? And it's a very complex subject, and lots of people have done amazing research on this topic. For me, I know it came out of a lot of play, right? When I realized that I might not be a woman, I didn't know what I was, right? It wasn't I know that I am this other thing. It was just, I was living in a box and the box didn't fit. So I got out of the box. And then it was up to me to kind of decide, oh, now what do I do, right? Like, I know that I'm not that thing, but there are other options. And I thought about, was I just a trans man, right? Was I no, that didn't work either. So I knew I wasn't either of those. So I started playing around. I shaved my head. So that felt really good. But then I also started buying, like, long pink wigs and stuff and, like, playing with the idea of femininity. And sometimes that felt really good for me. And sometimes I really enjoyed it. And other times I would play around. I would put on drag, right? And I would, like, make up my face and, like, give myself stubble. And, that also felt good in a wholly different way. And so a lot of this, for me at least, was just playing and being comfortable using gender as a medium for self-exploration more than anything else. Now, some people put on a mask costume, a masculine costume, that first time when they're playing, and they go, oh, this is it. This is right? Other people probably would, the other way happens too. So it does really come down to the individual and what they are looking for and what they feel. And a lot of it is presentation, right? A lot of it is that what we would call stereotypes, right? Well, women wear dresses and high heels, and men wear, baseball caps and, drink beer or whatever. And so there are definitely the gender presentation elements. And those are things that we use to tell other people who we are, right? That is how we signal to somebody else, this is what I am. This is how I want you to treat me, which is why it can be really hurtful if someone goes through a lot, even, like, expensive surgery or hormone treatments and years of, like, trying to get there. They finally get to that place where they think they're signaling and they still get ignored as what they're trying to signal. So that's why that can be painful. The other side of that, though, is gender identity. So those are two separate things. And one of them is based on our cultural understanding of what a gender is, right? So we have an understanding of men and women. That's presentation. Identity is just who you are as a person. And because language is about categorizing, we categorize by using words like femme or masc or, man or woman. But a lot of that is just putting names to who you feel like as a person and realizing a lot of the time that the names you were given don't fit.
Yeah, totally. I can totally see that because, there's all kinds of, there's men who aren't very masculine or I don't feel like males, who are just all over the place, and it can just go. It's a very. I do agree with the wide spectrum, and I'm totally up to letting people have the title that they want to have, as long as it's just not something completely ridiculous. But yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the only questions I have, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Will.
That's all I had that I can think of, and I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of you and Eric and the entire show. And I just discovered secular sexuality a little bit ago, and really enjoying it so far.
Yay! I'm so glad you called in. Honestly, the calls where I get to answer questions for people who maybe haven't gotten the opportunity to ask difficult questions or questions that might be touchy subjects are some of my favorite calls. So thank you so much for calling in, Will. You did a great job. And I hope we uncovered a couple things and cleared some stuff up for you.
Yeah, you guys did great, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for calling in. Call back if you have more questions.
Will do, guys. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Will.
V, I'm glad you were here to field that because there was no way in hell I had any
Right.
again.
I appreciate you guys. That was very diplomatic of y'all, just letting me go off for.
Yeah, this
No,
2/3 of the screen, we were like, so we're two cisgendered guys. How about we take a step back?
Guys, this is what allyship looks like. Sometimes it means
Okay.
not doing anything. But yeah, I love those kinds of calls. The reason that I do this more than anything is to have these kinds of conversations with people who maybe feel awkward about bringing it up in other situations. So kudos to Will for calling in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So let's get back to talking about you two. And let's talk a little bit about dating during COVID. So I'm sure everybody who has entered into, experienced, or left a relationship in this last year can attribute at least one part of that to the fact that it is COVID and quarantine happened and social distancing and just the fear of being around people, but also that deep longing to be around people. So how did COVID kind of impact both of you prior to the relationship? And then how have you kind of navigated it together?
Honestly, it screwed with me pretty bad. Most of my social activities involve other people, as social activities tend to do, but it's things I like going to the movies, going out to eat, going to see a drag show. Dear God, I haven't seen a drag show. We need to go see a drag show, by the way. When this is all over, we need to go see a drag show. And, I love being around people, and that's been really hard for me because I haven't even seen my own mother in over a year. I'm calling her every week to check up on her, but I haven't seen her in a long time because her husband's, in a high risk group. But it's been hard on me. I largely turned to online interactions because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Parasocial relationships became really important for me during COVID, obviously. It's the reason that I know both of you. But that's, I mentioned earlier, I was, working as a massage therapist and an educator, and Florida was one of the first places and hardest hit places with COVID early on. And, I, in the space of a few months, ended up shutting down a business, and in January of last year, decided to completely come out as an atheist and break ties with my faith community, which was
Mm.
basically everybody that I had around me in that area. So it was like that January to March pipeline of being completely supported and traveling and teaching and being very successful to all of a sudden I have to shut down my business so I don't hurt people, and all the people I would typically rely on for emotional support are not there. And also dealing with, again, a short-lived but very unhealthy relationship romantically. So all of that was sort of happening in that space. And so I sort of took a little bit of time to go back and regroup, moved back to a place where I was safe and was able to find work and that sort of thing. But yeah, COVID has definitely shaped the way that I relate to people, at least over the last year, and sort of changed like my perspective on, where I place the weight of my social capital and that kind of thing, because it did sort of force me to step out of that place of things are comfortable because I see these people every day, and kind of start looking at what was more fulfilling in like the big picture. And so, yeah, I mean, oh man. And then finding Jonathan was sort of this, like, I don't know, gift in the middle of a really difficult time, where it was like, hey, here's this person who's super kind and really wants to be around you, and also is taking this as seriously as you're taking it. And we're going to figure this out together. But don't push too hard. Like it was definitely like this weird sort of balancing act over the last year, but it's been informative, and I've definitely grown from it.
How
you're
has
talking about being kind? Being around you has been entirely for my benefit.
I found
Shut
that
up.
is one of the best ways to like approach a relationship, is just like both people think that they're the one getting away with something.
Right?
It's like, let's not. Okay, so how do you see this relationship growing outside of COVID? So as you know, like, vaccines are coming out. I just found out today that some dear friends are getting vaccinated, and I'm so relieved and so happy to see it starting to make its way among like just enough people that it's starting to happen in my communities. But how do you see this relationship kind of progressing after COVID? Or is this even a conversation you guys have had yet?
Drag show, obviously.
Drag show, clearly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just got my second shot last Friday, and I
Oh,
believe
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I believe Rags is scheduled for his first
On Wednesday.
Yeah, and once we're both ready, drag show. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, like, it's gonna be nice, like, if Jonathan comes to my house to see me and I don't have to well, if I let him back in. When he comes to see me, I don't immediately have to run to the bathroom and take a shower when I get out of work, because that was one of the things that my brain would not let go of, especially early in our relationship. The first time he came to see me, I was working as a day laborer because I was trying to just find any source of income. And I would walk in and go, this is Tennessee. People here are not taking this seriously. I live in a tourist community. Like, whether or not I've been exposed, like, if there's any chance that I can get rid of this before I expose it to somebody else. So everything would get stripped off. Everything would be put in a separate room. Everything. So being able to like have a sense of normalcy in the relationship, but also be able to sort of embrace sort of the good relationship practices that we've had, where it's like, hey, I'm going to listen to you because that's almost all that we can do right now. I think it actually sort of gave us a better jumping off point, because a lot of times romantic relationships start off more about the physical intimacy and physical proximity and interacting with each other in a very face-to-face way. But instead, we got to sort of skip past that like we had a Mario flute, and then go, all right, so now we have to like figure out if we actually like each other and if we're interested in the same things. So now we've got this really strong bedrock to be like, hey, do you want to hang out and build a desk today? As opposed to it being the other way around.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. You guys put that communication first,
Yeah.
and in very intense situations too. So that can only serve you well moving forward. I'm really excited to see where you guys go next after the drag show, of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
I like what he said. I would hate to add anything to that and ruin it beyond, drag show.
All right. We do have a couple more calls that I do want to get to before the show ends. We do have one more segment to run through with you guys as well. But I do want to run through these first. So let's talk to Charlotte in the UK. Charlotte is calling with an update. Charlotte, welcome to the show.
Hi, V. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling back. What's going on?
So last time I phoned up, I spoke to Christy and Rudy and Matt Delahunty, and I was considering coming out to my mum. So I'm polyamorous and bisexual and a bit genderqueer, and my mum had no idea. We had quite a difficult relationship, and we're not very close. And I thought that some of the shame that she kind of instilled in me about the body and women's sexuality, and especially, women who are interested in women, was kind of projecting from her Catholic upbringing. So that's what we kind of talked about last time I phoned in. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a few weeks, and I was feeling quite good at that time and quite affirmed. And I thought, there's a few ways that she could take it. But because we've been so distant, maybe this would be, a good tell of if she accepts it and kind of gets to know me and who I actually am, then it might be quite productive. But if she doesn't, or if she's strange about it, or if she uses it for something, or if it becomes a family joke or something like that, then that's not going to affect me so much, because, I know where we're at, and I know that my sexuality and my identity is mine, and it's great. So it's, I thought that would just be, well, obviously you're not someone I need in my life. But it's been kind of mixed. So initially, I sent her a message on Messenger, because I thought she's quite receptive to letters and writing and stuff like that. So I felt it was a good way to do it. And I didn't throw any kind of buzzwords at her or anything. I just said, I actually have, and I'm married, but I actually have a number of partners. These are kind of all those people. These are kind of the relationships within that network. This is what they kind of add to my life, who they kind of are. Initially, she was really supportive. She said, sorry that you've been carrying around shame and kind of not wanting to approach me about this. But then about a week later, on Valentine's Day, she called me saying, basically, where does this leave me? And it was a bit strange, and it kind of took me aback, because we had quite a big argument over the phone. And for a number of years, my mum's been kind of really denying my identity, and kind of throwing me insults when I would kind of dress how I felt comfortably, act how I felt comfortably, presented myself, who I dated, who I spent time with. And it was really, really controlling behavior.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, when this happened, I was quite kind of emotionally vulnerable anyway, because in the news in the UK, a girl called Sarah Everard. She was murdered, and the accused is a PC for the Metropolitan Police. And I've been sexually assaulted before, so it brought back a lot of trauma for me. The next time I spoke to my mum, she said that I just casually mentioned, isn't it awful on the news? She said that the people protesting were bandwagoning on Sarah Everard's family's grief.
Yeah, that tends to be the line is, oh, they're just looking for attention and using this person. There's no such thing as real outrage or real grief when it makes the majority uncomfortable. Charlotte, it sounds to me like you had a pretty intense couple of weeks there. It sounds like you and your mom are kind of still figuring this out. I think that probably if I could guess at what happened in the moment, your mom probably was like, oh, I'm talking to my child. Like, of course I'm going to be understanding. Of course, like they're coming out to me. She is coming out as all of these things. I love that you said you avoided buzzwords and just kind of said it. A lot of the time there can be negative stigma attached to certain words, unfortunately. So I love that. What probably happened was she went away and she talked with somebody else, whether that's a family friend or a pastor or someone in her community, or maybe she just did some thinking on her own and realized that she didn't understand it as much as she thought she did. Or maybe somebody gave her something to be anxious about. And so she probably came back to you with a lot of those anxieties kind of renewed and at the front of her mind. So what I would suggest, if you are looking for advice, if this is just an update, that is awesome, and we're happy you called back in. But as some friendly just advice from a stranger on the internet, I think that from what I'm hearing, your mom is receptive to this, and it's very possible that she will be able to come around. I do think that it's going to take a lot of education on your part, right? You are going to have to educate her about some things, and you're going to have to be very patient, and that can be draining, and that can make phone calls very tedious, and it could result in some hair pulling, right? But I do think that it's worth it. I know I've had to have conversations with my parents, with my mom, about similar things. And I know that she loves me, and I know that ultimately we're going to be fine. But there's always going to be that element that she just doesn't quite understand. And we both have to be okay with that being the case. So I don't know. Does that help?
It does to a certain extent. There's a lot going on where my mum's concerned. And I think that she's definitely coming with a lot of anxiety. But I think a lot of it's issues that she needs to work on and has always needed to.
But having an understanding child there to walk her through some of this is going to help so much. So kudos to you for coming out. I know that can always be scary, and I'm glad that at least it wasn't a bad situation. At least, there wasn't any, instant regret. I know that can be the case sometimes. But yeah, as you continue to have these conversations, feel free to call back and let us know how things go, okay?
Okay, sure. I mean, what I was trying to get at really is that my mum was actually abusive. So it's not really going to be something that's kind of that I'm even sure is going to be curable. But it's made me realise that what's important now isn't kind of calling her when she needs me to call and sticking to the schedules that she sets, but kind of just being who I am, not really giving any detail around it, not doing telephone calls if that's not what I can handle, and also kind of filling my life with the people who actually do know and love me as well. We've still got really strict lockdown in the UK, but we can form support bubbles if somebody lives on their own. And at the moment, my girlfriend's living on her own, so she came over on Friday, and that was wonderful. So those kind of things are really, really helpful. But yeah, it's just it's interesting because the point I'm at now is quite objective, And what I know that I need to focus on now is me. And what brings me joy and happiness and freedom and comfortability, really.
I love that. Charlotte, it sounds like you've done a lot of thinking and a lot of growing, and it sounds like you're in a really good place right now. Thank you so much for calling in. And of course, if you have other updates to share with us or other questions that come up as you start pursuing these new relationships and this new perspective on your life and your relationship with your mom, please don't hesitate to call in, okay?
Great. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you. Bye. All right, we need to rush through these other calls because we are coming up to the 8:30 mark.
Oh, wow.
I do want to make sure we talk to these two people first very briefly, and then we will wrap up with you guys, okay?
Okay.
Cool.
All right, Michael in Florida, how can we help you today?
Hey, guys, how are you all doing?
Doing good. What's up?
Great. Well, I wanted to call in because there was something that I've kind of been thinking about, and it started when I went on a date a while ago, and it was fun and everything. It lasted for some good time, got to know the other person well, but I noticed after it was over and just thinking about it more and talking to my therapist about it is I tend to overanalyze a lot of things. And in this scenario, it was about overanalyzing like what I'm wearing or what I say, what kind of vibe I give off, like so many different things, like where to go, what I should do. And I noticed that it's not just with the dating, but I tend to overanalyze other things too, like in other social situations, like what should I say, what should I do? And so kind of my question that I want to ask you all is, how does overanalyzing things affect relationships? And for someone who tends to overanalyze a lot, like how do you break that habit of not having to analyze everything?
That is a great question, and I'm seeing Rags doing a lot of head nodding over there, so I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, I'm very much a hyper aware person, and honestly, full disclosure, I'm not a mental health professional, and it sounds like you're talking to a therapist. That is a really, really positive step. But I would say more than anything else, it sounds like you are aware of when you start to run away with yourself, even if you catch it a little bit after the fact. You go, oh, okay, I'm keying into this a little bit too much. This is carrying a little bit too much weight. It's taking up all of my cognitive load, and it's bothering me that it's taken up this much. That's a great place to be, because that's a place where you can start taking positive steps to let go of that thing. And that's a process, and we're never going to be perfect at it. I know that from talking to my own therapist. And if you're dealing with somebody who is very open to kind of where you're at in life, being as open with them as you're being with us right now is, again, a really great place to start. I mean, you're talking to somebody that bought a shirt today at 6 o'clock in the morning because I was like, they told me that my blue shirt blended in too much to my background, and then they're not going to think that I'm a professional. Like, I do it about everything. I'm just hyper analytical, very, very self-aware. So more than anything, I just want to say that I empathize with where you're at. And for me, doing a little bit of mindfulness meditation, especially in the beginning of the day, to sort of take inventory so I don't sneak up on myself, has helped. And if you're not familiar with mindfulness meditation, just doing a little bit of breathing rhythmically and sort of walking through your own body and going, oh, I'm more stressed out, like, or, oh, my brain keeps going places and I can't just focus on my breathing for 15 seconds. I'm already keyed up. This might be a tough day for me, but now I know what's going on, so I can kind of treat myself a little bit more gently. Those sorts of tools have worked out really well for me. And but more than anything else, especially because when you're on a date, there's such a heightened sense of every move that you make, and that relative weighting of all of the things we want to put onto the idea of dating someone or forming a relationship, that you walk away noticing that you held your salad fork weird, or that like maybe you didn't order the right kind of beer, or that maybe like you said, I like this song and they didn't say anything. And what does that mean? And like all of those weird little idiosyncratic things that you go, and then all of a sudden you're an hour and a half into like this conversation with yourself that no one else is having. Like I've been there. And I think more than anything, the fact that you're willing to kind of recognize like, oh, I'm over analyzing this. That's the most helpful thing. That is more helpful than any piece of advice that any individual person can give you, because that's a sign of growth, because it's no longer that you believe that narrative. It's that you recognize that that narrative may or may not be false, and you're willing to kind of give it a second look. So just be kind to yourself, take a step back, keep working with your therapist. And you know what? As much as we can, as much as you feel comfortable and as much as I feel comfortable, we should normalize this kind of thing, because there are lots and lots and lots of us out there that do this. And it's not even that we do it and other people don't. It's that maybe we're a little bit more aware of it, and possibly somebody like you or me might do it a little bit more often than somebody else would. But everybody gets in their own heads. So you're doing fine. And wherever you're at right now, just maybe take a second to pat yourself on the back and be like, hey, I recognized this, and I reached out to somebody, and I'm regularly talking to somebody about it. Like those are all super positive steps. And then, of course, you're the expert on you, and you've decided to trust your therapist. So like you guys double team this problem, because there's nothing that you can't handle without or with a group of friends.
Damn, Rags, can you be on the show more often? It's just like you need to jump
that speaks to my heart. Like
Yeah.
that's I've lived with that for so long, and I hopefully I wasn't speaking for you, Michael. And then
Michael,
there I
what did
go.
you think?
Oh,
Sorry.
no, definitely not. No, I'll say this though. I really liked how you said that being self-aware of your own behavior is the best, like is better than any advice that anybody else could give you, because with advice, it's kind of a hit or miss thing where it depends on whether the other person's willing to listen. So you can give advice to someone, but if that person's not willing to listen, it's just going to bounce off their heads. But like for that other person to come to that conclusion on their own is a really good step. And frankly, it's the start of them changing their behavior.
Yeah. And one thing I can say from my own experience is, you sound like you're a fairly well-spoken person, and that you present yourself well. And I know from my own experience that people tend to buy my bullshit because I present it well. And even though my own perception of myself is way, way out there, they just buy it. They're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And then that sort of feeds back into my own narrative. So like, also, being like that moment of self-awareness where you go, I'm making this into a bigger deal than it is so important, because that gives you a chance to reframe it, not just for yourself, but for your close friends and your therapist, and be honest with your therapist, but like to reframe the way that you're looking at it. And that's super important. It sounds like you're doing the work.
Wonderful. Awesome. Michael, thank you so much for calling in. We are going to have to move on to the next call just to wrap up. But I really, really hope that what Rag said spoke to you, and definitely call back. I think this is a conversation worth having in more depth as well.
Absolutely.
I just argue with strangers on the internet.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Michael.
Michael. Bye. All right. We've got one more caller, and then we will wrap things up. Kevin in California, how can we help you today?
Hi, V, and everybody else. Thanks for taking me. I feel like my question was poorly worded here, so I'm going to try to make it quick and clarify. So I come as I'm like a cis white male who really doesn't know much about like transgenderism and stuff like that. So it's very controversial, I guess. I'll try to be careful in how I approach this here, but with people talking about like gender or sexual dysphoria and transitioning, do you think there's like a minimum age for maturity that would be appropriate? I know this is probably better to consult your doctor, but I mean, in y'all's experience or understanding, for example, like for myself, I thought it would, I should definitely have a vasectomy at age 15, and by age 20, I became a parent. So, how our way of thinking can change very drastically during that period of time. And,
right, exactly.
And what your thoughts were on that?
Yeah, well, I actually love this question because this is an area where a lot of people get confused. And because people aren't talking about this clearly and as commonly as, we should be, it's a place for a lot of fear and kind of fear mongering to take hold. So I do want to address this right off the bat. So is there an appropriate age to transition as a trans kid, right? So at first, the very first thing you're going to want to do with a trans kid is not run them to a doctor and say, we need to schedule a surgery. Like, that's not what anyone is doing. It's letting them grow their hair out or cutting their hair short or letting them, shop in the other part of the clothing store. Just super simple things to see if that works for that kid, right? Is that something that's a phase and they're going to grow out of? Okay, cool. You know now, that there was a phase there? Or is it something that takes hold and really does bring out this part of that kid that really needs to be seen and is really them? So the first section of a trans kid's life in an affirming relationship with their parents or their guardians is really just experimenting, is play, is that whole thing that I was talking about earlier that I got to do a lot older. The next step is puberty blockers. Now, this is not surgery. It is not putting any kids on hormones. What this is doing is delaying puberty so that your body, the kid's body, doesn't go through that transition process into a gender that they do not want to be until they have the clarity and the maturity to make that decision for themselves. So what you would do is, maybe at the start of puberty, so 12-ish, you would go to a therapist. The therapist would say, yeah, this kid might be trans. And if that's the case, going through puberty is hell. Going through puberty would be terrible. It would be like body horror, like watching your body change into something you aren't. And so they would prescribe, or they would get you to a doctor who would prescribe puberty blockers. And all that would do would be to delay puberty until that kid had a better idea of what they wanted to do. And they would just buy them some time, right? So up until the age of when we, like kids, 18, 19, 20, when kids are actually making all decisions, right? We can enlist them in the army at that point. So let's not pretend that there's this one standard of responsibility that can't be attributed elsewhere. So once those kids reach an age where they can make that decision, then they can decide, I want to go off puberty blockers, or I want to go on hormones, or I want to start talking about surgery. But all of that is all stuff that comes later. So when we talk about trans kids, what we're talking about first and foremost is just that element of play and gender presentation experimentation. And then if that continues, puberty blockers, while they are able to talk with that therapist more, talk with their parents, actually know what they are, who they are and what they want, and get to a place where they can make an informed decision as somebody with all of the facts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that was excellent explanation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad you called in. And this is it's a common topic of conversation among people who are concerned about trans people for whatever reason or feel threatened by them. So it's really, really good that we have these conversations in a supportive atmosphere that is full of learning and education and rationality, so that we can allay some of those fears and discount some of the misinformation that's going on around all of that. So thank you so much for calling in and asking this question, Kevin. I know it might have been awkward for you, but you did a great job, and we're happy we had this conversation.
All right. Thanks for your work, and be well, everyone.
Thanks,
You
Kevin.
too. All right, we are out of callers. We had so many callers today, you guys. Oh
It's
my
exciting.
goodness.
Yeah.
You guys are just like, I don't know, super famous. All right. I know we have to wrap things up, and I want to make sure that you guys have enough time to plug your stuff, and we want to make sure to thank the crew. But I do want to talk real quickly about one last component of this conversation, which is kind of how this relationship differs. I know because it started out in COVID, because it started out online in this really cool way that, you know, you guys found each other in the same groups. But also, I happen to know a little bit about how this is different in other ways and how you guys actually are learning new sides of yourself and how to be in relationships in different ways during a time when being in a relationship at all is just super hard. So kudos to you guys, first of all, for doing that like deep introspection and learning. And also, I'd love to like just walk through that with you guys real quick if you feel comfortable.
So speaking personally, my relationships were before this were either tragic, abusive, or too clingy. Like those were the three types I got. And this has all been very new to me because I have been out of the dating pool for a very long time, and I hadn't dated a man before. So very new in a lot of different ways. A lot healthier.
How about you, Rags?
Okay, good. No, I sort of touched on the fact that I tend to have really soft boundaries. And one of the sort of net benefits for me of being in this relationship is that I have someone who doesn't give me pushback the minute I set a peg in the ground and goes, "Oh, cool, you're good." And as like in a healing way, that's really good for me because I've made decisions that I haven't liked in the past based on the fact that I'm a people pleaser. So you know that's been one thing, but also just not needing to again, but because of the nature of our relationship, not needing to physically be present to offer certain things to a person, be it male or female, or anybody on any part of the the n-dimensional axis. I'm sorry, Katie Montgomery, you put it perfectly, and my maths just aren't up to par. But like, just having being secure in the fact, yes, we like each other, yes, we both want to be here. And we can negotiate what that looks like, as opposed to needing to either be the dominant party or be the submissive party, both inside and outside of the bedroom, right? Like be the have that space to just like have a healthy back and forth with my partner is something that I really haven't had a ton of, in my dating life. And I've gone through very long periods of not dating anyone. And then, other relationships where my role was sort of prescribed and there it was, and it was done. And so just having somebody that's willing to kind of walk beside me as opposed to cut the path for me or stand behind me and wait for me to like find my way through the trees has been a really different kind of experience for me.
That is beautiful. I have absolutely loved getting to know both of you individually and then watch you guys get together and just hear both of you gush about the other person. Like it's been like the most wholesome shit on my timeline this last year. You guys are timeline blessings. All right. And speaking of blessing us all with your content, let's get your guys' stuff up here. I know that both of you have content that you guys are creating. Rags, talk about what you are doing on YouTube.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is sort of a mixed bag. It's a little bit counter apologetics, a little bit personal narrative, and a little bit current events or political commentary. Basically, if it sparks my interest, I talk about it from 7 to 90 minutes, just depending on where I go with it. But yeah, I mean, most recently I did a 40-minute video on the bad ethics of dead naming. And I'm working with someone right now on the complex economics of American poverty. So just come talk to me. It'll be fun.
That's awesome. How about you, Jonathan?
As far as that goes, the only big iron I have in the fire right now is Nat One Heroes, nat1heroes.com. We're on YouTube. I'm really proud of it. It is a Dungeons and Dragons actual play that is put together by myself and some other people within the secular community. I think it's really amazing. We're not just treating this as a game. We're treating this as collaborative storytelling that uses the rules of a game for a framing device. And it just makes something really special and interesting. And if you've never seen Dungeons and Dragons, it is a game where literally anything can happen. Like if somebody wants to pants a guard, they can pants a guard. I don't have to program that. I can tell them how to pants the guard.
That's
like
amazing.
Roll a D20, you get to pants the guard.
I love it. All right, you guys, you have no excuses not to go check these two out. I absolutely loved having both of you on the show. Thank you for spending an evening with me and talking about yourselves and your relationship and sharing that with everybody here. I know we all had an amazing time tonight.
Thank you so much, B.
Really, thank you.
Really.
All right, let's talk about the crew for a second here. Let's head over to the crew cam and just send some appreciation their way.
Dad bod.
Sexy crew cam. Oh, look at that. That's amazing.
Crew cat. Mm-hmm.
I like that Woodhouse has a dad bod too.
Right.
All right, guys, if you want to talk to us and the community around SexX on the off hours, aka most of the hours, you should check us out on Discord at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. That is a place where you can go to make sure that you are up to date on everything that is happening, talk with other people who like the show, share stories, and hopefully maybe even see Jonathan and Rex around. We also have a merch store. And so if you would like a sexy pillow to impress people once COVID is over and you get to have guests over again, you can go to bit.ly/AEN merch for all that good stuff. All right, so Christy isn't here to do his normal outro, so I'm going to take over and see if I can remember this because I've been nose deep in whiskey this whole time. I don't know if you can tell.
I've only done beer if you need some backup.
All right. I think it's time for us to thank everybody and, wish everybody a big old orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one. Have a nice night, everyone.